Good afternoon and welcome to the October 16th, 2023 Policy Management Committee meeting. I'm Rebecca Spondrowski, representing District 2, a chair of the committee, and I just want to start off by letting people know I am not sick. I have a torn vocal cord, but it's not painful or anything, so I just don't want people thinking I'm sitting here sick. With that, I will let my colleagues introduce themselves, and we'll start with Ms. Evans.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you, Shebra Evans, District 4, and I'm hoping my colleague, and I feel bad about your voice, but okay.
Ken says it's a holiday.
Hello, everyone. Sami Saeed. Happy to be at my first Policy Management Committee meeting today. So still in first. It's October, but I'm still having first, so that's very interesting. Excited to be here.
Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon, Brenda Wolf, District 5.
Okay, so let's see. Should I go around and let everybody introduce themselves first before we get started? Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Lori Christina Webb. I'm the Chief of Staff for the board.
Victoria Van Dyke, Board Staff. Sally Davis, Supervisor of Policy and Regulations for the Office of the General Counsel.
Good afternoon, Greg Edmondson, Director of Student Welfare and Compliance.
Good afternoon, Stephanie Williams, General Counsel, Montgomery County Public Schools.
Great, thank you. Well, welcome everyone, and to all of those in the audience. We appreciate you all being here today. We've got a very full agenda, including our work plan for the year, approving our work plan for the year. So before we begin, do any committee members have any questions, concerns, or revisions for today's agenda or the informational summaries? No, from the May 16th meeting? Okay, then let's keep going. We're going to start with item number 3, policy JHC, child abuse and neglect. We're going to have our annual review of the implementation of this policy. This is an annual item on the Policy Management Committee's agenda. And so we will hear about our efforts to ensure that the system is implementing this very important policy with fidelity. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to staff to walk us through where we are with things.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Spondrowski, Mrs. Evans, Ms. Wolf, and Mr. Saeed. With me at the table is Mr. Edmondson, and in the audience is his colleague, Mrs. Kathleen Smith, also a senior specialist in the Office of Student Welfare and Compliance. Mr. Edmondson?
Thank you. Kathy Green.
God, what did I say? I'm sorry.
It's okay. And she's an incredible asset to the district. So we have slides up. Great. So this is the annual, again, thank you for having us from Student Welfare and Compliance. This is the annual update to our Policy Management Committee and the Board of Education on implementation of JHC, child abuse and neglect, for the 22-23 school year. So we can go to the next slide. So we don't take, in my opinion, in 32 years in Montgomery County, we don't take anything more seriously than the safety of our children, and especially along the lines of any child being abused and neglected in any form. And I think this policy is an excellent reminder of the expectations not only of the board, but of MCPS and all of our employees as mandated reporters, to ensure that we are not only aligned with federal, state, and local law, but we are going above and beyond that and ensuring that every child is safe, they are engaged, and they are in a supportive learning environment. There was the word vigilant up there. We are vigilant in these efforts to not only report and know how to report and know our expectations to report, but to recognize what this looks like, what it looks like to be physically abused, to be emotionally abused, verbally, as well as neglected. There are many signs of a child being neglected. There are many signs of a child being groomed, and our training goes into those different aspects of this work deeply, and our staff and our volunteers in our community are reminded often of what these expectations are. We collaborate externally with our partners. MCPS is one layer of this work, but we work very closely with Child Welfare Services and Child Protective Services, Adult Protective Services. We work very closely with our State's Attorney's Office, as well as our police department and special victims unit. And we work on a regular basis, on a scheduled basis with those 4 entities as well. And again, supporting students who are the subject of these reports is paramount to our work on a daily basis. If you could, next slide. I'm going to briefly discuss staff training, the screening of our employees, our volunteers, our contractors, again, how we collaborate, as I mentioned, with these external partners. I will, in your report, and I will reference today the number of cases for the past year in relation to the past few years as trend data, outcomes of these reports, as well as any actions that we've taken with regards to follow-ups. There's 2 sides to this report. There's one side, there's one layer of it with regards to in the home child abuse and neglect, and making sure that our students are safe from family members or anybody who's close to them outside of the school. But we also have information regarding employees as well. So we want to make sure that that's handled from Department of Compliance investigation, which we'll address briefly today as well. And then considerations for the coming year are part of this. So with regards to staff training, if we go to the next slide, we have district-wide mandatory compliance training every year. For this past year was 31,000 people, and that included not only our employees, but that included not only certificated staff, that included any MCPS employee, substitute. It also included our volunteers and any contractors who are working in our schools. We have a continuous model with regards to how we develop those trainings and how we revise them every year. So from the 22-23 that we were still in the 11 module format this past year, as you know, we not reduced it, but we condensed it and made it more linear with 3 different modules with regards to keeping students safe, keeping staff safe, keeping each other safe. But for the 22-23 year, we still had the 11 module, and we take that through a multi-stakeholder committee process to ensure we have the most up-to-date information, we have the most up-to-date language and training, any of the aspects with regards to what I mentioned earlier, but what grooming might look like, what new training or what new identifiers are out there. We make sure we include those into our trainings. There's mandated reporter expectations, of course, for recognizing and reporting, as I mentioned, and that's part of our training. And we include our updates on gang behavior, human trafficking, any exploitation of our students has recently been added to last year's training as well. We work with the Maryland Human Trafficking Center to make sure that we have their most updated research on an annual basis. And then we provide not only for the compliance training, which is the year annual training, we provide regular training for our school administrations and our counselors, as well as our student welfare liaisons throughout the year. If you can go to the next slide, please. So with regards to screening employees, we do conduct multi-point background checks, including fingerprinting, and for any of our prospective employees. We take them through the National Association of State Directors and Teacher Education and Certification Clearinghouse, which is for all of our certificated staff, that's teachers, counselors, media specialists, psychologists, principals, any of our potential hires go through that NASDAQ clearinghouse. We also have all potential hires taken through the RAPBAC program, which is an FBI from the Federal Bureau of Investigations. We submit the names and the fingerprints, and if there's anything from any of the 50 states with regards to any type of child abuse or neglect or any type of indication sign finding, we will get that through the RAPBAC program as well.
Mr. Edmondson, that's really great to know. And can you let everyone know how long we've been doing that?
We've been doing wrap back since, I believe, 2018, 2017. And before that is when that's a great question. I wanted to bring it into my notes. We were going back into all of our schools. If you remember, there's like a 5-year rotation period. We were going back through our schools to make sure that we updated all of our fingerprints for any employee that was hired before that. So once we started that in 17, we didn't have to go back and redo that. But anybody who was hired before that, we did. Went back and re-fingerprint everybody. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yes, and we had that question maybe about 2 weeks ago about how in-depth we had gone into trying to ensure that child abuse and neglect reports were being caught. And so I thought it was important. I think this is really timely that we're having this discussion. It's almost like we planned it and we did not, but it's perfect for our community to know what we've been doing around around background checks and the screening of new and existing employees. And so I'll let you finish and then we can ask questions later, but.
Okay, yeah, you can jump in anytime with questions.
Okay.
We also work closely with any of our potential hires with our local CPS on any person who might have been indicated, whether they were a part of our employment prior. Any new hires, we take them through our local CPS and Child Welfare Services. I think we're on the next slide, but we have self-reporting expectations that are part of our contracts and part of our expectations for hire that our employees are made well aware of through not only the employee code of conduct and compliance expectations for employees, but that they must self-report in a multitude of arenas, not just in abuse and neglect. And we have House Bill 586 that we take all of our potential hires through, which is, and that came out in 2019. And what that means is anybody who is hired or potentially applying and being hired, that we as MCPS must contact their current and former employees with specific questions around whether or not they've been indicated in any type of abuse or neglect of a child in any of their work history since they were since they were 16, 17, 18, any age, that we go back to their former employees. It also, House Bill 586 also mandates that we go into MSDE, into the state, to make sure that they have a valid certificate. Up until May 1st of this past year, we had 2 layers of training and expectations for our volunteers and contractors. The first one was that they must take our training. It's a 30-minute module on recognizing and reporting child abuse and neglect, but they also had to complete the COVID-19 vaccination module, which showed, and they uploaded that they were fully vaccinated within compliance to the state of Maryland, and that they were agreeable to the masking and social distancing expectations of the county. We did remove that second layer of expectation on May 1st of 2023. We go to the next slide. So this is the number of our volunteers and contractors who have been screened. I know I was at this table a year ago, and people were surprised about the jump. And I just want to remind you about the 2021 was the 20 and 21 time was the we put the county pretty much on hold with our volunteers when we were not only those few months when we were during shutdown and complete online, but even coming back in 2021 when, even though we were back in some and most of our buildings at some point in the year, volunteers were not a part of that process, at least physically in the building. And we are continually on the rise again for the last few years. And it's nice to see because we need our volunteers. We don't want these things to be a barrier for our volunteers to be involved. So we've rolled out multiple languages with our training and making sure that multiple accessibility points. We have some schools are providing like group bulk training for our volunteers in the media center with the content, and then the principals communicating with us directly to make sure that they are given credit. And we work with Shella Cherry's office with student leadership and with volunteers to make sure that it's as smooth as possible for our volunteers to be in our schools helping us and helping our kids.
We don't charge them to do fingerprinting, is that correct? Or do we still charge?
I'm sorry?
Volunteers, do we still charge them to do fingerprinting?
We're still working that out. I mean, we're,
Bless you.
I can't say yes or no because there are some circumstances where I know volunteers are still paying for it, but we're trying to get that message across, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I also had a.
And it depends on where they go. Oh, you're talking about training. There's no charge for training. You're talking about the fingerprinting.
I'm talking fingerprinting.
Yeah, so again, if they go within the school system, we're not charging them, but there are some other outlets that will do fingerprinting and they are being charged. So we're trying to make sure they all go through MCPS.
Okay, well, I was gonna say, I know that there's also been concerns in the past about the ease of access to the fingerprinting, you know, for people who don't have transportation and things like that, and whether or not we can do things like maybe do a rotation at schools where people can actually go to their school on a particular day or something. And
I know that it has been done, and I know that HR is great and are working with schools individually and principals if they have a need such as that. It just depends on volume, and again, I can't speak for HR, but I know they're trying to be as accommodating as possible.
I appreciate that.
Can I jump in there? Mr. Edmondson, do you know how big, so I'll just say this, our previous budget, we incorporated to be able to have on-site fingerprinting, but that's not a very big office or staff of people, am I correct?
I'm not sure. You want to speak to that, Dr.? I don't think I have those numbers from
Yeah.
Human Resources.
If someone's in the audience, can
Please,
speak to
please,
it.
come on.
Because this is the thing, we do want to eliminate barriers to be able
Correct.
to have it done, but we also don't want to, if we're understaffed, I don't want to say understaffed, but if we don't have the staff to be able to accommodate moving around, then we want to consider that and be thoughtful about that as well.
So we actually literally had a meeting about fingerprinting last Friday. So looking at making some changes, streamlining things and how we can make it more efficient. But I'll let Ms. Harris talk a little bit more about that.
So let me just introduce you. Sorry, this is, Brian Hall, Chief Operating Officer, and Darlene Harris. And I'm not 100% sure but you're at the Chief Operating HR.
Yes, I work with OHRD Executive Director. Good to see everyone. We do charge for volunteers, contractors, and employees. We just stopped charging for retirees. The fee is $62.50. Part of that fee actually is not going to us, it goes to the state. So that we can get the information processed. The other half does go to us because we still have to pay for certain needs. Right now, we're not fingerprinting. Ourselves or our people are employed to fingerprint due to us being in a temporary place. But once we become permanent, all of our background screening specialists can fingerprint, and we can come more self-revenue so that we can start paying for additional things. But right now, the only thing that we do the mobile for is the outdoor education, which is the largest group that we do for volunteers. So as long as we have about 20 people, they don't charge us an additional fee. So American Identity Solutions goes out. There's someone that gathers everybody around, and they get outdoor education volunteers and other volunteers. So that does happen at the schools. We just have to make sure to make arrangements for that. But that has been happening since we've come back from COVID.
I just want to clarify something, though. You just said you're not doing fingerprinting for ourselves.
For ourselves right now.
What does that mean?
So what happens is American Identity Solutions is fingerprinting for us. So someone just comes in.
I understand. I
but
thought you meant
just
we weren't
can't-
doing.
No, we are, but we just can't do it ourselves. And typically we would, so that we're able to pay for different needs. We still are taking on for staff or potential employees that cannot pay. We still do that. We pay for retirees, but we can't not charge anything because then that becomes a burden on us as well. And right now, we're not able to pay for a lot of things due to us not being temporarily housed in a place so that we can say, okay, we could pay for people who are in need or other things.
When you say
That was
we,
kind
how
of
many-
my
how many
question.
are we?
I would.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't finished. When we said we, how many how many people are actually doing the fingerprinting when we're able to do it?
Okay, so right now, what we have, there are 6 people. There are 2 administrative secretaries. Then we also have 4 background screening specialists. There is a 5th one, but they are located in the Department of Health and Human Services. They only deal with CPS because we were behind on Child Protective Services cases. So that's all they do. So right now, we do have 4. We do have the equipment to hire 7. Just for background screening specialists. So right now, our numbers are going back up to where they were before, pre-COVID. So we're trying to take that into account. So we did hire, with the support of the board, to get another background screening specialist. So we're now up to 4. That takes care of MCPS employees, all the contractors, and the volunteers in the MCPS.
Okay. Ms. Wolf?
I guess I was just trying to understand, if I know that we have to charge something, I heard you say that, but we have a number of families that just can't afford anything else because they're farms, let's say. So what do they do if they want to volunteer? If we cannot waive the fee in any way, shape, or form right now?
So what has happened, the schools have been really good with the IAF accounts. A lot of times, parents think, or if they're volunteering, feel that they need to be fingerprinted. There are only certain people that need to be fingerprinted. This is when we're doing outdoor field trips, different things like that. But if you're coming in and there is another MCPS staff member with you, that's a little bit different. Sometimes people are saying, you need to get fingerprinted for everything, but that's not the case. But the school has been working with families that have that need, and if not, we'll take care of that. But typically, when they said that, the school has already helped out with that as well.
So if I know at my grandson's school, they have the classroom parent kind of thing, person that comes in every week. So if I can't afford it, as long as the teacher is in the room, are you saying that I don't have to be fingerprinted?
There's certain things, yeah. So there's certain things that you don't have to, because there's some people, for example, that just come in. But if I know Miss Williams is an MCPS teacher and that's my only time coming there that one time, it's different because she's right there. But typically, because most parents come in often all the time and they want help one-on-one with students or a group of them, they need to be fingerprinted. If they're just doing a one and done type of thing, that's different. But most of the parents that we know are very involved with their student. But if they cannot afford it, typically the school has been very good through their independent activity fund to help that. But there have been principals that say, listen, we don't have that, and we'll take care of that. We've never turned anyone down.
Okay, so then how do the parents know this?
Usually,
Like if they come in and they're told that the fee is a certain amount, if they come to HR, how do they know they can go back to their school and seek assistance?
typically we would just work with the principal, and because there's policies, everything is put out every year for field trips, who volunteers, who, fingerprinting, who gets fingerprinted, who does not. If there's any confusion, they either call Greg's office or our office, but we always will try to handle anyone that needs help with the fingerprinting.
I just want to have it so that people know that policy.
Got it.
Or if it's not a policy, that they know that this is available. And so I'm looking for a broader statement in the MCPS community than just, individual school. Do you understand what I'm asking?
I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's volunteers in schools, but it is a regulation. It is outlined who is supposed to have, in what circumstances volunteers are supposed to receive fingerprinting
if they're gonna be
as
alone.
compared to, right, as compared to taking the training, the module.
Yeah, I understand that. That's not what I'm asking, though. What I'm asking is, can we have broad notice to the public that this is available if it's needed?
So
Or
every
are you
school is expected
hesitant to
to
do
do-
that because of the budget? Let's be honest.
Every school is expected to do a volunteer orientation at the beginning of the school year. And so they lay out expectations about what they need to either take care of with fingerprinting and like Dr. Harris said, we do not expect fingerprinting for any volunteer. So volunteers come in and help the school, help the class, and they don't need to be fingerprinted. It's just the module just the module now. If they're going to, and the key word is supervision. So if we're expecting them to supervise students on their own without an MCPS employee, then they go through fingerprinting. And that is probably 5 or 10% of our, aside from outdoor education, because that's an expectation. It's probably 5 or 10% of our
I
volunteers.
just want people to know that know the distinctions and know when it's needed and know if it's needed for whatever they want to do and they can't afford it, that there are other means of getting it done. That's all I'm trying to figure out. I'm channeling grace for her.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. We'll make sure of that.
Yeah, thank you.
So if we can go to the next slide, please. So this past school year, we had over 3,900 reports within MCPS to CPS. Again, reports not whether or not they were substantiated or not. These are just reports, calls made and reports filed. And of those, 3,834 were from our online process, which, and I know the board, at least the PMC has in the past, has asked how much is, how accessible and how much is the online reporting being used. And so I wanted to make sure you had that context.
Can I just ask a question? Are these school reports? They're not home reports. Are these incidents in the schools or incidents that people believe are happening at the home?
So the significant amount of these are from household caretaker or within the home. Now, these also include numbers that if an employee or a volunteer, somebody is being alleged to, abuse or neglect a child within the school, but they're both.
I'm telling you why I'm asking, and you could correct me if I'm thinking about it wrong, but I want to know if you're getting reports from the home, incidents in the home that people are reporting or incidents in the school, because if it's sort of an anonymous report, I'm looking for patterns. Are you getting it from a particular school or?
Oh, these are not. None of these are from the home. These are all
in school.
From MCPS employee or volunteer or contractors who suspect that there's abuse or neglect going on. These are all from our inside.
Okay, but is the abuse suspected of like a teacher and a student? I guess.
So that's in the report.
I guess I'm not being clear about what I'm trying to understand here. I want to know.
The distinction is in the memo. So of those 211 this past year involved the allegation involved an employee or a volunteer or a contractor.
Yeah, I understood the 211. I was trying to understand this number up here of suspected cases.
Of 3,972 reported instances, 211 of them were in reference to something in our school.
Okay, so the rest, okay.
The rest are all from home.
All right, thank you.
And maybe we can make that more clear in the future when we look at the report.
I needed to understand this.
I'm sorry.
It's fine, if everybody else got that.
It's all right.
Either. I'm with you.
We can make that more clear for the future. If we can go to the next slide. I alluded to this earlier, but we have a very close collaboration and partnership with Special Victims in our state's attorney's office and our Child Welfare Services, Child Protective Services. And I appreciate how easily accessible they are through text, through phone. If we have a case, if we have a situation where we don't want to send a child home from school because we're sending them into danger, all of our agencies are so quick to pick up a text or pick up a phone and help us get involved as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to publicly say thank you. And we also, this past school year, established the Emergency Communication Center, and that's basically it's a direct line between the school system and the police that we did not have before for our employees to call and contact our police department, and they've been very helpful with some of these cases.
Mr. Edmondson, my question is this. So when you, a little bit ago, you referred back to when we do our modules and we have a committee that we work with to update them on a regular basis. Are these the partners that we're conferring with?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to.
And we meet with them on a monthly basis through our multidisciplinary team meetings. And so if there's any suggestions or anything that we say, hey, we need to add this to our training, we work together on that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the community did not make the assumption that we meant that we're collaborating with internal stakeholders. That is.
Oh, they're external for sure.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a quick question here. I have a question about the chart that talks about the outcomes of the CPS reports. So I just wasn't familiar when I was looking over this before about kind of what the chart meant when it said, like, there was this number of reports, this many were screened out, ruled out, indicated. I'm just not exactly sure what that means. So if you could explain kind of how this chart works and what it means, that would be really helpful.
Sure. If you want to go to the next slide, I think that's the one you're talking about. Okay, great. So these are our employee, contractor, and volunteer cases. Like we said, of the 3,900, these are 211 cases. And so this is done outside of my office. This is done within the Department of Compliance and Investigations and Human Resources. But they will investigate a case. They will work directly with CPS, and it's a back and forth where CPS gets a call that's not from MCPS, but it might be from a parent or from outside. They will contact Compliance and Department of Compliance and Investigations, and then that is the CPS outcome that you see on the screen there. So CPS will screen out a case, which means that they don't have enough information to even look into it further. They take the report and they don't have the any reason from their definition to open an investigation. Sometimes if they're on the line, they will reach out to my office. They'll contact Ms. Green or myself and say, can you reach out to the school? Can we learn more about this before we might open this up? But that's what screened out means. Ruled out is that they looked into it and they ruled it out completely, that there was an investigation and it did not happen. Unsubstantiated is that they looked into it, investigated, but they did not have enough information to rule it out or to indicate. So it's kind of in the middle there. It could have happened, it might not have happened. And indicated means that they believe that there was abuse or neglect by the person, the offender, and there's 4 there that are ongoing.
Well, how can something be screened out? For volunteer, you have 1 number of reports and 10 were screened out. I don't understand that. That threw me when I was looking at the memo.
It should be, I'm sorry, that should be 1.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
There was a 0.
That makes sense.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
And real quick,
It's like, how do they?
when one of them is unsubstantiated, so they don't know, what happens to that person? Are they allowed to continue?
From CPS, they'll provide that to Department of Compliance and Investigation as part of, because they'll investigate after as an employee.
Okay.
And they'll take it to the employee code of conduct. And that could be information used with DCI, but on record with CPS, the county agency, it's unsubstantiated.
Okay, gotcha. And so all of these things would be coming from, you said, reports from like teachers or just community members in general?
These are just our MCPS/volunteers filing report. Oh yeah, these are all of our employees as alleged offenders.
Okay.
Or volunteers or contractors.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Next slide. Your time here. And this is, as I mentioned, once CPS makes their outcomes and their final decisions, then it goes to Department of Compliance and Investigation, and this is our follow-up investigation and where they landed as far as outcomes within MCPS and the Employee Code of Conduct. We have considerations, if you go to the next slide. As we move forward to continually meet with our stakeholders and our collaborative teams, our multidisciplinary team that I mentioned with those 4 entities, we have a student training module, which is Culture of Respect. At the time for last year, it was 2.0. We just call it Culture of Respect now. We're very pleased with the newest version for our students, and we provide that for grades 6 through 12. We now have student leadership heavily involved with it to not only, they're part of the video, they're part of the module, opening it up and being in the training, but also getting the word out and encouraging their different groups and their different, and thank you for all your help with that as well. Just making sure we get as many of our 6 through 12 graders to complete it as possible. Our online reporting process is something that we continue to monitor on a hourly, daily basis as they come in. We follow up with schools. If there's a case where the police may not have been contacted, we're kind of like that second layer of eyes to make sure police are involved if they don't have that. Enhancing the training plan for our student welfare liaisons in our school base. That's ongoing work, not only within the district-wide compliance training, but within those individual certificated staff and other staff trainings that we have, sometimes quarterly, sometimes monthly. And then just monitoring the implementation and working closely with our counseling office with the personal body safety lessons so that students can recognize possibly when there's inappropriate touching and things like that going on. I'll open it up for your committee for any discussion or further question.
You can keep going, I think. Does anybody have anything else? I was going to say, no,
I was
be
gonna make-
conscientious of time, please.
I was going to make a comment that when we were mentioning all of the people that go through the child abuse and neglect training, I wanted to give a shout out to the board because the board has to do it as well.
Absolutely.
And, appreciate Ms. Green because she's helped our office on several occasions in the past. So just wanted to let everyone know that we go through it as well.
And we're all mandated reporters.
Mandated. Very good. Well, if there's nothing else, then we can thank you very much for your,
Thank you for your time.
presentation and for your work on this. Seriously, obviously, it's of the utmost importance to us. So
Absolutely.
thank you. With that, we will move on to item number 4, policy ITA, everybody's favorite policy and topic of discussion. Our school year calendar. Yay!
All right.
Today, we're going to engage in part of our process for calendar adoption. The proposed calendar comes first to the Policy Management Committee for review and feedback before we move it to the full board for adoption in December. There are always multiple factors that need to be considered, and today staff is going to walk us through the considerations as well as the engagement work that has been done. And I do have to just start off by saying personally how blown away and impressed I am by the public engagement and feedback that you all have managed to collect and get. It is hard to get people to give feedback, and you kind of knocked it out of the park. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Dana Edwards in the Office of the General Counsel to get us started.
Good afternoon, Ms. Mondrowski. I'm glad to hear you're feeling a little bit better.
I'm just not sick.
I know, but still, I know it can be a small burden, and I'm glad to know that everyone is excited about this topic because we are too. Mm-hmm. So I am here with Kat Malchody, and we will talk to you about some of the work that we've done to bring you just the draft of the 2024-2025 school year. Can you imagine we're in October and we're already talking about next year? So if we go to the next slide, we'll go through some of the processes of what we've done thus far, some of the input that we received, and really when we think about this calendar, it really just provides the time that students need with staff during a daily basis so that they experience all of the elements under the strategic plan, but also so that they can actualize the things that we have talked about on the pathway to college and career readiness. So we want to make sure we provide a calendar that's going to provide kids the opportunity to learn and show that, but also give them space to be able to engage with those experiences and for families to have a level of consistency. On the next slide, I just want to talk to you about, as this is Policy Management Committee, our policy feeds a little bit from the state level, and there are things from the state that go into our, that we consider when we've written our MCPS policy. The state says that we need 180 days of instruction. Our policy, we offer 182 days of instruction here in MCPS, and there are a certain minimum number of minutes of instruction by level that children must receive, as well as the state holidays that we've incorporated into our policy as well. The other component is that we take into consideration here in MCPS the contingencies related to inclement weather, professional days and early release days that are associated with our contractual agreements, as well as educational interest and operational needs. And one of those, if we think back several years ago, we included Inauguration Day as a day because it was an operational need because of where we're situated geographically. Next slide. So here we talk a little bit just about the timeline, and Ms. Mondrowski brought it up and just shared that the very first stop that our calendar makes is here because it is associated with the policy. However, our work started in August because we wanted to get some really good input, and I say input, not feedback, but we wanted to understand what people wanted to see in their calendar around a few key concepts, and we'll talk a little bit about that. August and September, we spent a lot of time really engaging, understanding students, staff, families, qualitative, quantitative, like really what is the interest and what does it look like? And so we're really proud of that work, and we still have a lot to do. When we leave here, the calendar will come back to the full board in October, first round of discussion, and then per policy by the December meeting, we adopt for the following year. So just to kind of orient you or reorient the committee as well as the general public around what comes next. Right, next slide. And so at this point, one other piece that we do is we also look at neighboring districts, and that's always important because we have a lot of staff who live outside of MCPS, and then, as you know, we always look at what each other are doing. So just to give you a few things, what you'll notice is some school districts already know when they're starting school in 2024. That's because they adopt their calendars 2 years in a row. And some of the feedback that we've heard is people would like to know a year in advance. So we will share that is an interest from our stakeholders that we've heard, and we wanted to talk to Policy Management Committee about it in terms of what we take to the board. That's how they know the start and the end date. So if you notice with some of the surrounding counties and as well as DC Public Schools, they already know when they're starting and when they're ending, as well as their winter break and spring break. Great for us because we can benchmark with them. However, we are hearing that interest in terms of what that could possibly look like for us. And then you see Arlington, Baltimore City, and Prince George's, they're going through the same process that we're going through now for the coming years. That just gives you just a preview of what others are experiencing, and that kind of aligns with some of the feedback. I will turn it over at this point, and Ms. Mondrowski brought up just the level of engagement, and it's been really an exciting time, and I owe that all to Ms. Malchody, and I'd like for her to talk about some of the work that we've done and some of the things that we've heard that really have kind of brought us to this point today.
Thank you. Before we start, though, I would like to say, as it is National Bosses Day, that having someone who allows you to be creative and empowers you to sort of think outside of the box is really wonderful. And it's been very exciting to do this work because I have been allowed to sort of think differently about it. And that, for me, is very exciting.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Nice job, Ms.
Good job, Dana. No. Next slide, please. So I think one of the things that was most important is recognizing how important it is to get feedback from our families, from our community. I started teaching in this county in 1999. I'm a parent. I'm a working parent. People are busy, but they want to be able to be engaged and they want to be able to have those connections. And so one of the things that's been very powerful for us is to think about the anti-racist audit and the actions that came out of that, and really using a lot of that feedback in how we went about engaging our students, our staff, our families, and our community. And we had to be very intentional. You can't just say, oh, I'm gonna go out and ask people and hope for the best. You really had to think about what could we do. And so we always have those traditional paths where we do a survey and we have a committee, and that still has a lot of value. But what we've tried to do is to really think differently and to utilize sort of the spaces and places where people are and meet them there.
That's great.
And connect with different offices who are doing similar work and kind of join forces and say, hey, you need to connect with this community in this way. I need to connect with the community in this way. Let's do it together. And so really partnering with not only our community school liaisons, our parent community coordinators, lots of other friends in OSSWB who really connect with those schools on a daily basis. They have been amazing partners. We have, sort of used places like Back to School Night. We actually put up one of our flyers at the international office because that's when families first come to register for MCPS. So really trying to think of different things. And then one day we were kind of brainstorming and we said bus stops. And then we said big bus stops. And we went to transportation and we said, give us the biggest bus stops you have and we're going to go there. And so we've done that. We actually went back this morning for National Bus Safety Week with the principal and did a little different kind of engagement, but really thinking about how can you access families and children and their school teams. I mean, for them to walk and see their principal and their mascot, it was like Disney World. They were so proud. So really thinking of those opportunities to get that, like Dana said, that input from people right away. Next slide, please. And so, like I said, we really have taken the action plan from the audit very seriously and the community engagement tool that comes with it, and really tried to think about what are the components of that we need to consider. One of them was thinking about accessibility of language and sort of the combination of the text and the visuals. And so that was a huge part of the work that we did to think about what was going to be forward-facing for people. We also tried to think about moving along the continuum of, instead of just informing or consulting, really moving towards involving and collaborating with people. And that's a really important piece of that work as well. We also did a huge social media campaign because we have access to that through our website, through X, through, sort of all different types of social media, as well as kind of being creative with pop-ups. So we had a pop-up on the MCPS page, and we also got a pop-up on the student Chromebooks. So when you logged into your Chromebook, it would pop up with the QR code. We got to meet with student athletes. We got to meet with student leaders. As I said, we went to the international office because that's when families come for the first time. And just really tried to be as creative and innovative in terms of how we were engaging people as possible. Next slide, please. So, more than 26,000 people have responded just to the survey. As of this morning, it was 26,657. Wow. And so we were thrilled with that. When we look at the responses by role and race and ethnicity, one of the things that we really wanted to see was that the responses by race and ethnicity would match our student population. They still kind of match our staff population, so we're moving in the right direction. But I think one of the nice things about our team is we're never really satisfied. We're proud and we're excited, but we want to do better. And so that's an area for us where we see growth. We see opportunity, where we can really take that and say, okay, we did pretty well, but we want to go more. What we tried to do with the survey is to just do the four main things that could really make a difference in terms of the big build of it. So when would you have the first day of school? What would you do with that week of Thanksgiving? What does winter break look like? What does spring break look like? And as we were thinking about that, really thinking about, well, what visual would help people see that? Because I could ask you, do you want to start school before Labor Day? And I don't know what the calendar looks like. So then when we decided to build a survey, we're like, oh, we'll build a calendar. Well, we decided to build a monthly calendar because visually that was, aesthetically, it made more sense when we were talking about, sort of engaging with people around dates. And we really also wanted to think about limiting language in it because the visual was so important and was very universal in terms of people understanding, oh, that's the calendar, that's what I'm talking about, but I don't need 8,000 words on a page, and I also don't need a lot of just sort of formal language that gets in the way of people being able to weigh in. Our goal was like a first grader could respond and like my father-in-law who drives my son to school could respond. Like anybody in between could really respond to this and put in their input. And while we're doing that too, we always sort of look at who's still missing from the conversation and who have we not really accessed well. And so for us too, as we think about, going into that next phase of engagement, where are those spaces and places where we want to see more engagement? Next slide, please.
Real quick.
Oh, yeah,
If I
sorry.
could, a couple quick things.
Sure, sorry.
One of them, I just want to say I'm going to take credit for a few hundreds of those survey
Oh,
responses.
thank you.
I put that on my social media, and we got a lot of
that.
attention. But, something that you guys did that I got a lot of direct positive feedback about was what you were just talking about, the way you formatted the survey. Students loved how clear and open it was. I mean, I literally got people, personally messaging me saying, hey, that survey you posted was really, really easy to understand. I really appreciated it. So I think doing that and making the visuals like they are on the screen right now so clear really, really goes a long way. One thing I would like to see, and I know it was done, I think, through a Google form, so it may be hard to do this, but I kind of want to see specifically what students were responding, because I see these big numbers here, right? But I know that almost every single student was telling me they wanted school to start after Labor Day, and so I'm thinking if we just saw the student responses, maybe it would look different, and it would give us insight maybe into the parents really want this, but the students really want this, and I think that's important because you want to see what certain communities are saying. But going to bus stops, going and doing all these things, that's fantastic work, and I really, really love to see that. So maybe, breaking the data down more specifically would be great to see.
And thank you so much for your advocacy and pumping it up, for lack of a better word, because the students really did show up. We can break the data down, and we do have it broken down, and so we can do that as a follow-up, and then we'll highlight a couple of those areas there, because you are correct. Students did have an affinity for after Labor Day. However, I don't know if students also connected with when you would get out of school after Labor Day as well. So, but we saw, if you can see the data on the screen now, just how close it is.
Yeah, so like Dana said, for each of the four main areas, what we tried to do was give you sort of a snapshot of where we were as of last week, and then, as we're closing it out, I think today. And so we have a breakdown, and we've done the breakdown of sort of where people are up until last week, but we'll make sure we do it again for the Board of Ed meeting just to make sure you have it. But it was fun to read. My internal committee actually went through all of the other, which was where people could put comments in, and I sorted it by students, staff, and families, and I made them go through them and kind of pull out some of the big themes, and it was pretty fun to see where people's energy was. So for this one, you can see 51% starting before Labor Day, 49% starting after Labor Day.
Good to see you.
I have a quick question. I want, and what this may or may not be relevant, but when you mentioned, Ms. Edwards, about the students maybe not thinking about how much later we would be in school, do we have the information by school level? Because my thinking is that the ones who probably wouldn't care about how late school goes would be seniors, because they're not actually going to be here that long. So it would be good to extrapolate that data a little bit as we think about it. So I just wanted to add that in there.
No, that's
Even actually, for me, it's personally helpful just knowing that 26% of that 49% is students. Kind of really shows me how much more the parents wanted, as opposed to before Labor Day as opposed to after. So that's.
Next slide, please. So this was an interesting one too. This one was sort of weighing in on those 2 half days that we used to do sort of earlier in November, but have moved to the week of Thanksgiving, and sort of asking people a similar question: would you want them earlier? Would you want them within the week? And you can see sort of where the energy is at this point with that one.
I got the same results last time too.
And so quick question. So when we get to Thanksgiving, we're in the second marking period, correct? So can we assume that because we have, on our memo page, you show like the number of days, like that's 50 days, right? Which could seem like a long time if we haven't had a break. So I was just wondering if there's a correlation between the actual days in the marking period versus if it's a shorter time. So I don't know. That was me probably overanalyzing.
No, I mean, it's a lot of people have overanalyzed it. I find it interesting. As a former math teacher, I always, sort of looking at what the weeks look like and what that would feel like. I think there have been people who have said, oh, have them earlier so we have a little more, it was actually a student who said it to me, it breaks up the breaks. And so some people will say that. Sure, absolutely. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, this is one of the funnier ones because the 23rd is a day of school and it's a Monday. And we asked people, would you like to go to school on that day? Well, so this one overwhelmingly people chose not to have school on the 23rd.
And primarily, some of the feedback was around operational impact. So if that's the one day that we would come in, the concern was around attendance, not only for children, but also attendance for our staff. And so would it really create a flurry of needing substitutes and really thinking about could we really function as a district on that day? So that would kind of give us an elongated winter break by default, but really the consideration was just around the operational impact in the district.
Just want to say I don't think there's any question of where students voted on this particular question. So I just want to say that.
You are correct. Next slide, please. Okay, so this was kind of an interesting one because for spring break, we have spring break this year very early. And in 2024-25, our spring break is almost a month later. And so when we think about when spring break would fall, this one kind of becomes interesting because it's much closer to May than we would think. As you look at sort of where the calendar falls. So this one was kind of an interesting one that people, a lot of people who gave me feedback that they liked the late one just said, then it makes the rest of the school year shorter. So you always sort of hear fun things when people weigh in on how they feel about that. And obviously we look at other things that would occur during those 2 weeks to really see where the energy would be. And thinking about AP and IB testing and some of those things that come closer to May. Next slide, please. Okay, here we go.
All right, so you've seen a lot of the input that we've received, and we will give you the breakdown by the stakeholder group so that you're able to really see, especially for the close ones, around that first day and last day of school. As we were doing this, we learned some things about ourselves. One of the things that we learned about ourselves is that this model of a calendar, and I'm going to take ownership for it. Ms. Mandrowski will remember when I was an executive director and I did the calendar, we moved to this model to show the calendar in this format to be able to color code it for people to see a full year. What we're learning, though, and what we've learned from folks is that it does not look like any other district's calendar, one. Two, it is difficult to read, and it is more of a teacher's calendar. It's not for families. It's not for kids. And when we talk about reading accessibility and really thinking about our families, we are really creating barriers for more people than not. The other part is it does not show the weekends, and it also does not give us space to highlight in really a good way around some of the religious observances. I'll use Ramadan as an example because of the fact that we would want to know that we have students and staff who may be fasting. And so not to say we would put it on our calendar, but what we've heard is how do we have maybe something on the back that's interactive for people to hover over or to learn about to make really good conscious decisions for everyone. So through this process, what we've unearthed, as we've talked about, there's some structures that we put in place many, many moons ago that worked for us that now just don't. So one of the areas is we want to bring forward the 12-month version of the calendar. We are going to talk to you through this lens because this is what's familiar to everyone today, but we have gotten a lot of energy because, again, it looks like other districts. It's accessible to folks, but we have started to kind of socialize what that model would look like. The second component is the 2-year planning, and to be able to at least look at a draft of dates for 25, 26, I believe I have it correct, that at least would let us know first day, last day of school, and some of the bigger pieces within the calendar, and then to bring that back the following year to talk about it. So that kind of summarizes all the input that we received that kind of have taken us to this point. And now I'd like to transition us just to look at 2 scenarios. Any questions about what we talked about so far?
I appreciate you saying that you were going to look at it through this lens, because it's what we kind of know. But I would still be very interested in seeing this larger, because this has always bothered me, as you know, because it's hard for me.
I just want to echo that. I'm so glad you're going to go. We're
Me too.
thinking about going
Just
to a
hated
new
it.
model, because it took me a while to understand this completely. It's not easy to comprehend, even to me, for the board.
Correct.
I appreciate that, and the 2-year planning will allow me to figure out what cruise I can go on in advance. Thank you.
Exactly. We're very supportive of both of those things.
For both of those. Okay, so thank you so much for that feedback. And as I shared, this was my making, and so we're going to shift away from it.
Math teacher love.
But if we go to the next slide, we'll start with scenario A, and the next one, please. Scenario A on this particular slide is the start the week before Labor Day. And so that would mean on August 26th, that would be the first day of school. Pre-service would begin on August 19th. So this is the typical time frame that we are very familiar with. September is a very instructionally sound month, and then similar for October, where you see continuous days of instruction. We do have a professional development day in October that does align with a religious holiday. As you know, we have used our calendar to be able to highlight those observances. And then at the end of October, you notice that that would be the end of the quarter. So we have a good time frame to kind of get in and start that instruction in October. We discussed in November connecting those early release days to Thanksgiving and kind of replicating that and using that for parent conferences across the district. And then moving into December, if you notice on the 23rd, we did put a non-instructional day on that day. So we did take the feedback, close schools on that day to create a pretty long and lengthy winter break within that time frame, and we would return on January the 1st. If you go throughout the calendar, the next couple of places just to bubble up, February and March are very long time frames. On February 17th, one anomaly I just want to bring up for that year, the 17th is Inauguration Day. It is also Dr. King's birthday.
Oh, nice.
So we don't get 2.
The 20th.
I'm sorry, the 20th. January 20th, not February, January 20th, Inauguration Day and Dr. King's birthday. So they are combined. If we hear different, of course, we'll do an amendment. We'll come back and we'll go through the process as we've gone through before, but I wanted to highlight there. And then in April, you notice that we did the earlier spring break starting on April 14th. And the last day of school here would be June 12th. And so that provides you just that before Labor Day look. Scenario B on the next slide is after Labor Day. And I just want to talk through that a little bit, just for the committee to know. If we go after Labor Day, we would begin school on a Tuesday, September the 3rd. And so last year we toyed around with like a Wednesday start because Frederick does that. There are a couple of other districts that do it. It was a disadvantage to certain populations, childcare, people in other districts. It also lessened the number of days within a paycheck for some of our 10-month employees. So that's why we associated ourselves with a full year start. October is a very strong instructional month. And then you notice that the first quarter would not end until November the 4th. So it's a little bit later than October, but then it starts to pull us into the holidays that we are mandated by the state. Spring break would stay the same during that April 14th to April 21st, but I do want to bring your attention to June. For scenario B, for the start after Labor Day, in order for us to put in the number of days that we need, as well as all of the contractual components that we have, the last day of school would be June 20th. June 19th is Juneteenth, meaning we would go to school June 16th, 17th, and 18th, have a day off on the 19th, come back on the 20th for the last day of school, and then come back on that Monday for teachers to do their contractual grading day. So I just, as we had the interest around when the first day of school is going to be, that after Labor Day does kind of put us into a different space in terms of when school will end. So these are the two scenarios that we bring forward to Policy Management Committee, as well as those other pieces in terms of what we've learned from feedback from our stakeholders. And we'll turn it over to you for a discussion.
I just have a question. What is, on scenario B, what is the holiday that's on November the 5th?
I'm assuming it's also a holiday scenario.
Election Day? Okay, thank you. I couldn't.
And I forgot to add that in. Thank you. And
I knew it on the other one. Thank you.
We identify our election days as holidays.
So something I wanted to point out is that with scenario B on the end date, when we have that day where we go for Juneteenth and then come back,
No one's coming.
no one's gonna. I'm like, being honest, like knowing students, that's a 2-day holiday. I think that's something that's definitely important to note, and that is something maybe if you guys would be interested, I can ask students directly around that, because I'd actually want to see, hey, if there was no, because students are going to be honest if it's an anonymous survey, if there was no school on Thursday and the last day was on Friday, would you really show up on that Friday? Would you want that over the other scenario? Because I think something in the survey that I think you guys pointed to earlier was it didn't emphasize enough that if we start school later, the end date is going to change. It's going to be later, and not only will it be later, but something like this where we have that kind of weird fragmentation at the end could occur. So maybe kind of looking into what students think about the end, not just the beginning, would be important as well.
Mr. Saeed, that would definitely be helpful, especially because we saw it being so close. And I forget the percentage, but we will give the board, the committee, the breakdown, the percentage who are close to before and after Labor Day, and it was a definite interest of our students.
I'm just curious. A number of people have contacted us in the past about Veterans Day being a holiday. Did you get any comments about that this time?
The one thing I will say is it's not one of the state holidays, and we tend to align ourselves with the state holidays. I'll let you share if there was any specific feedback we heard around Veterans Day.
So we have heard feedback around Veterans Day, for sure. I think with every day that we can commemorate in different ways, we hear people who say, well, we should be in school to honor that day, or we should be not in school to honor that day. And so I've heard some people say, oh, we would like to honor our veterans and have the day off, or to align with, sort of the government and the days that they take. It wasn't overwhelming.
Wasn't overwhelming one way or another.
It's just a handful of people who mentioned it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Along those lines, though, so the calendar parameters, these are the state mandated ones, correct? I just want to clarify that for everybody. And when you bring the calendars to the full board, if possible, it'd be great to see it in this format. Number one. And number two, I had a question. Columbus Day always used to be a school open house day. This year we were closed. I don't know when Columbus Day is, to be honest, for next year, but where's that on? If we could, I guess what I'm trying to spit out is if you could list what these holidays are when you bring it to the full board, it would be helpful.
Two things. Yes, in the appendix, the calendar parameters are all the state holidays except for the inauguration day. We put an asterisk there. That is an MCPS identified closure or a holiday based on operational need. Indigenous Peoples Day for next year, we have that listed as an actual school day. When we bring everything to the board, we'll put an appendix in, and that will include all of the different holidays in that space.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, because mine doesn't, my inauguration day does not have a little asterisk by it, so.
Okay.
And I think too, that one's been interesting because we've actually gotten feedback that people want to have school on that day.
I know, that's what I was wondering. So, because a lot of people like to watch in their classes and stuff like that together. And if they're home, they won't. All right, well, thank you. Does anybody have anything else before we close this up? No? Okay. Thank you all so much again for your work on this and for really looking at things differently and thinking outside the box. Thank you.
And I'll try and work my magic and get that survey for you.
All right, so we're going to move along to item number 5, the discussion of the draft 23-24 work plan for the Policy Management Committee. So we're going to discuss our plan for the upcoming year. We've got ongoing work that is carrying over from our 2022 to 2023 school year, some new work for the 23-24 school year, and our annual work that we do routinely. Sally, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you in the Office of the General Counsel to get us started.
Mrs. Mondrowski, in the interest of time, I can talk as long or as little as you would like. Basically, we finished 3 last year, and we will have done a lot of the work by the end of this meeting.
Great.
For ongoing work.
Does anybody have any questions that they want to review? No? All right then. Thank you very much for your work on it.
On we go.
We will move this forward. That's 1 and 10. I like it.
Okay.
Okay, and now on to item number 6. Policy GEA, the Board of Education appointment of selected leadership positions in Montgomery County Public Schools. As I think most people know, come on down to the table. Ms. Key, the board is responsible for approving appointments to leadership positions, and we take that responsibility very seriously. For many years, we've only had a regulation in place. I believe the last time there was a policy, it was like, 1976 or something. I don't even know when it was, but the recent events, has made it very clear that it is imperative that we have a board policy that clearly articulates our vision and expectations around the selection of leaders in the school system. It is important that this policy serve as a governing document over who, how, and when leaders are appointed. And I'm going to ask the General Counsel's Office and Human Resources Department to share with us the frameworks that they have drafted. I'm sure this policy will provide us with a robust discussion on how to codify our vision and what our vision really is. So with that, I'll turn it over to you all.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Mondrowski and members of the board. I'm April Key, OHRD. In response to current ongoing efforts to upgrade appointment processes in MCPS, I am bringing forward a framework for developing a policy to guide the board's role in the appointment of key leaders in MCPS. Prior to 2005, there have been a board policy on appointments, Board Policy GEA, Appointment of Professional Personnel. That policy was adopted in 1961 and rescinded by a previous board in 2005. Since 2005, board appointment processes have been governed by Maryland law, which authorizes each county board of education to appoint administrators upon the recommendation of the superintendent. Given the challenging landscape of leadership selection and hiring, the framework we're discussing today substantially re-envisions, reinstates, and renames the former board policy GEA. The framework includes the goals for the re-envisioned policy, the approach to developing the policy, resources, and a primary list of school districts that may inform our benchmarking, as well as related board policies and MCPS regulations.
Real quick, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off or anything, but I had a question about something you said. You said the policy was rescinded in 2005. Is there any reason, or do you know the reason that was rescinded?
I do not know the reason that it was rescinded.
Oh, it was just out of curiosity. Okay, thank you.
The goal of the new policy is to uphold the integrity of the process to recommend diverse, highly effective, and qualified candidates to move forward for board appointments. This process will include criteria for information to be included in the superintendent of schools' recommendations and timelines that ensure ample time for the board's deliberation prior to appointments. The approach. The policy development process will include cross-office collaboration that includes stakeholders from all MCPS employee associations, strategies successfully implemented in the benchmark school districts, and available research will inform our deliberations. In addition, consistent with the board's commitment to community engagement to inform its decision-making, this next phase of policy development will also include the development of a robust community engagement plan for the public comment period. At this time, I'm happy to take any questions.
I just wanted to double check and see if Ms. Davis had anything that, I know you were, it looked like you were going to say something in the beginning, and I just wanted to see if you had anything you wanted to mention or add.
Well, just for your information, the second page of your materials has the former policy that was redacted. So when you read it, you can see what topics were addressed and which were not. So in it was rescinded at the time that another policy, GAA, was developed. So a lot of the concepts from the former GEA rolled into that other policy.
So I have I'll start with my one question. This is just kind of the framework and not really inclusive of all that will be included in the policy. Like, for example, how we will address acting appointments and things like that, that I expect will be certainly included in the policy. And I'm curious, as with the Board of Education being very clearly a key stakeholder in this policymaking, how will that feedback be taken?
So you'll receive information 2 days, 72 hours it is, in advance of your closed session, so that you can have that opportunity to read over the materials, then have a full and robust
That's not what I mean, actually, I'm sorry.
sorry.
How are you going to get our feedback? Like, how are you going to get what's the word in the development of the policy? I was going to say, what's the word I'm looking for? How are you including us?
Well, it is my assumption that it would be a deliberation. We would bring drafts to you and you would provide feedback.
You had mentioned an inter-office work group to work on it. Would it be possible to include the board office?
Absolutely.
That would be very much appreciated, and yes, that would be very good. Yeah, because I know that we've, as a board, have been already having discussions on some of these things, and we've been discussing with our board office as well some stuff that we, very specifically would like to make sure is seen in this policy. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to?
I was just going to echo the comments of Mrs. Mondrowski that it's very important that as the governing body and the leaders that provide oversight to the system, that we are an integral part of the development of the policy. So I just wanted to reiterate what she was saying. And we already have, as you said, begun having the conversations. Yes. And so I did want the community to know that this wasn't complete, right?
That was my point, too.
Yes.
I was like, this definitely does not list all of the things that are going to need to be a part of this policy.
And then Ms. Davis did mention, or Ms. Key, I'm getting confused, that there will be an opportunity for the public to provide comments as well, as they do with every policy. But I just thought I needed to make that clear too, right? Because I'm sure we'll have a lot of comments coming.
You can put Kat out on it to get the feedback for us. So, okay, well, does my colleagues have any other things?
I'm just going to say, as always, thank you for doing this work. It's really important. As Ms. Mandrowski said, sometimes things that are unfortunate that happen allow us an opportunity to fill in the holes and the gaps that we did not see that were there. So thank you. Yep. And just thank you in advance for the work that you're doing. I saw the work plan is very detailed and a lot there. So yes.
All right. So then if everyone's good with that, we'll continue to move on along and go on to item number 7, BLB, Rules of Procedure in Appeals and Hearings. This policy has significant implications for the board's quasi-judicial role. The policy has been out for public comment, and now staff is going to update us on what they have heard, and we will review the proposed draft with the changes that are reflected by the public comments. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Ms. Davis, go on.
Fine. So joining me now is Dr. Natasha Jones from the Director of the Division of Appeals. And in the audience today is also Ms. Jody Malmstrom, Legal Director in the Office of the General Counsel. So we're here to discuss the public comments. You'll notice from your materials, we had 5 comments. This is largely a procedural update to align with state law. So they were very technical edits. We looked at the 5 comments, and we're not recommending any further changes to the draft based on the comments. So
Okay.
I turn it back to you.
Okay, great.
We're just available for your discussion.
I was going to say, well, these are all really technical comments. I'm not reminding my colleagues, Mr. Saeed was not on the committee when we saw this the last time before it went up for public comment. But just for your clarification, these are things that keep us in compliance, essentially. So unless you have any questions, or does anybody have any questions, we can move it to the full board for finalization. Okay. Sorry for your time. Appreciate you being here. Always nice to see you. And we just keep on rolling. We're going to now move along to item number 8, policy ABC, parent and family involvement. This policy is coming back to us to consider what we've heard from our community as a refresher for people. And please jump in. Normally, Robin kind of details a little of the background on these things, so I'm going from full memory, but this came to us, and MCPS-MD ended up writing in like a day or 2 after and submitting their collective comments after we'd already withdrawn the comment area. So we, as a full board, decided we would send it back to committee in order for us to be able to take into consideration the MCPS-MD's comments as well. Ms. Davis, jump right on in there.
Sure, and I'll spare your voice if it would be helpful. I do want to recognize Ms. Frances Frost is in the audience in case any questions come up that she can answer. I do also want to recognize Mr. Edmund Hernandez. The 2 of them have done just Herculean work on shepherding this policy and the previous policy, community engagement, through the development process. I just want to, for the public who may not be aware, just to recall that the first draft was distributed for public comments from February 9th to May 12th, 2023. The first round of comments were reviewed by this committee on May 16th. The draft was then further amended by the committee at that time and forwarded to the full board for consideration on June 27th. At that time, the board requested that the amended draft go back out for public comment. The second draft was distributed and it was available for comment through October 2nd. This third draft is presented to you today. and it responds to the additional public comments received. I also want you to notice, because you have not only a summary of the comments, and a summary of the public engagement, that we received, 200 literal comments in several languages on the policy, but recall all of the focus groups and question and answer meetings and conversations that took place with the Student Action Achievement groups, and you'll see those listed in your engagement summary. Minority Scholars Program, Montgomery County Regional Student Government Association, the Faith-Based Advisory Committee, Black and Brown Coalition, the NAACP Parents Council, Family Engagement Advisory Team. And so in addition, the many conversations that took place through the anti-racist audit conversations frequently touched on this issue of family-school partnerships. And so, those notes were also included in the development of this draft. So to summarize a few themes that emerged from this most recent comment period, you'll see some edits throughout the document for you to be able to see through our lines and crossovers and shading. Shading were the things that we changed in the first draft that went forward to the full board. If it's shaded and underlined, then it's the second wave of edits we made. So I hope you can read through those and play along. But I'm just going to highlight
An example of that with,
Okay.
I know, I know.
happy to do
No,
that.
I understand what it means to be shaded and underlined. I meant like, how was it changed? Because that means it's been changed twice, correct? If it's shaded and underlined, it's been changed twice.
It means an additional change this time, just one change. It's an addition to what you've seen previously.
Oh, so you're saying it only happened on the second draft?
Yes.
Got it. That's okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
All right, so 6 big themes. One theme that we saw in a couple comments was respondents wanting us to focus our engagement on academic decisions. So you'll see on page 1, we've added line 17, a focus on inclusive, culturally responsive, anti-racist process for parent engagement in educational decisions affecting their students and their students' schools. We picked this theme up a couple other places. Page 2, we heard a theme about building the capacity of staff and focusing on building staff before we start talking about building capacity of parents, with the strong belief that parents have capacity. We need to build our side. And so you'll see that page 2, line 24. We acknowledge that both are at play, but we wanted to emphasize our role in developing ourselves first.
That's good.
Okay. So the next theme was, we had some questions about what we meant by a strength-based approach. So to be clearer about what this meant, I have highlighted page 3, lines 52 to 77. To make this clearer, staff drew upon professional development they've received on Dr. Karen Mapp's dual capacity concepts that were developed from her research at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. So what you see there are the focuses on 4 major principles that we start with the assumption that all parents have dreams for their children. We go to the second, that all parents have the capacity if they have the appropriate resources. The third is that the responsibility starts from our side to extend, to make the partnerships possible, and especially the commitment to school leaders who encourage parent guardians and staff to have confidence that all are committed to the student's best outcomes and all can be equal partners in the student's success. And then the fourth concept is that significant relationships and social networks among families in our school communities create strong school-family connections. I read, when I heard this come up in conversation, I thought, how many times did a friend say, "Are you going to that meeting?" And that one rang quite true personally. The next theme I wanted to highlight for you is on page 5, lines 116 to 122. this talked about parents will come to something if it's worth their time. So family engagement activities are purposely designed to meet families' needs for high-quality, relevant information that supports the students' academic, social, and emotional development. So we wanted to focus on that. The next theme is right below that, to rephrase how we talk about diversity and just state it plainly. School communities are enriched by the traditions, identities, and experiences of all MCPS families. The next theme we wanted to focus on is on page 6, lines 139 to 144, that emphasizing that families need to be able to get to us. So two-way communication tools and processes must encourage opportunities for parent guardians to communicate with and request information from their local schools about their students' achievement and well-being at school. The final theme I want to highlight is on page 14. There are some other, edits in between, but this was another theme that popped up. And it is this idea, again, of what we know about social networks. So line 351 to 354, where feasible schools, this is in the implementation strategies section of the policy. We have this whole section, if I can back you up one page to 13, is about communication tools and how we're going to do this a little bit more. So we are saying where feasible, schools should consider making use of trusted relationships among families to communicate important information about school events, opportunities, and deadlines. And with that, I will stop and return this for your discussion.
Real quick, I just wanted to highlight something I think you talked a little bit about, which I see like a lot of these comments here are basically a lot of parents saying that this is limiting like parent involvement. I saw you just talk about a couple points that is actually strengthening two-way parent involvement. So there's a few things that they were talking about, like something in there that says they'll will work with parents when appropriate, or community engagement in the board decision-making process when requested by the board, and a lot of people weren't happy about that. So maybe if you can comment about why those decisions were made and their implications, because I think a lot of people are saying they feel like parent involvement is being limited. Yeah.
Sure. I think there were times when something was taken out at the top of the document and maybe expanded lower. So the comment about appropriate, we just took that out. What we were trying to say was there are things that we split between two policies. The policy ABA that we finished last year really focused on community engagement for the purpose of informing the board about their decisions. It used to be kind of fused together in this policy. So where we have taken that kind of board policy part, words that were still tracked in here, we took them out because they're somewhere else and they're dealt with much more thoroughly. This policy is really focused on parents' decisions, parent and guardians' decisions for educational decisions involving their student and families' participation in the decisions at their school. So part of it was just splitting the language. So the other policy about community engagement to inform the board's decisions take place when the board asks us to go get that kind of feedback. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I knew there was an answer. I just wanted it to be clarified, just so I know what to say and so people can see this here. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Any of my other colleagues have anything that they want to add to the policy before we make a motion to move it to the full board? Any other changes? I think you guys did a really good job of reflecting the comments and the feedback that we received, and I'm very appreciative of that. I think, something to keep in mind to Mr. Saeed's kind of question, even, a lot of times people confuse providing feedback and input to us doing what they tell us. And so to me, that's where an appropriate kind of falls in. There are some things like with curriculum and stuff that are state mandated even, and whatnot. We don't necessarily have a say, but they want us to. So anyways, I very much appreciate the time that you took to interpret stuff. Oh, yes, and thank you both so much for your work on this. Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you also because I was having a hard time going through the comments and making sure that the changes were in there. So thank you, Francis, and thank you for walking us through this.
Yes, agreed. So, yeah, we had a little brief conversation before this and wasn't sure about some of it, so it really helped us get clarity on all of the changes and everything, so thank you. With that, I'm going to ask my committee colleagues if we can get a motion to move it to the full board. And
Move approval?
Second.
all in favor? I'm not sure if that's actually necessary to do it that way, but we did it, so better safe than sorry. So, okay, well, we will move that on to the full board then. And go straight on into MCPS, item 9, MCPS regulations, which is an item for information purposes only. So unless there's anything anybody else has, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.